Welcome back to Top 5 Auto Repairs. What are some indication that you know that the fuel pump is going to fail and you should replace it ahead of time before you get stranded on the road? Some of the indication are: number one, hard start; number two, when you step on the gas pedal, it feels like the vehicle wants to stall; number three, low fuel pressure; number four, high mileage; number five, I'm starting to get lean codes for this vehicle. When this vehicle is getting a lean code, it's an indication that there is too less fuel and too much air. That's how I know that this fuel pump is becoming weak and it's time to change the fuel pump motor. So the fuel pump motor is still running, so there's no need to check the fuel pump relay or the fuse, and there's no need to check for power going to the fuel pump since the vehicle is still running. However, if you have a no start condition, you should always check for bad fuel pump relay, fuse, connection, and power going to the fuel pump. To locate the fuel pump is either located underneath the seat, somewhere in the trunk, or you need to drop the gas tank to get to the fuel pump. To remove the fuel pump, you can use a fuel pump lock ring removal tool, or you could just use a chisel and a hammer and hit on top of the lock ring to remove the fuel pump lock ring. Before you begin, always vacuum the whole entire area because you do not want to introduce dirt and debris inside the fuel tank. When dealing with the electrical system, always disconnect the battery and make sure to relieve fuel pressure. You can relieve fuel pressure by removing the fuel pump relay and then cranking the engine for a few seconds, and you should relieve fuel pressure. If you don't want to go that route, you can always place a rag underneath the fuel line to catch some of the fuel that's coming out of the fuel line. As you can see in this design, you do not need a quick disconnect. Instead, push these two tabs inward, push this forward while pushing these two tabs inward, then pull this back, and this should release. As you can see here, it looks like there's a cover on it, but it's not a cover. This is just a very simple tab that you just push inward and just pull it up. Since you already got this out, it's best to check for power. Make sure you're getting sufficient power because you can actually have low voltage and it can supply low power going to the fuel pump, causing the fuel pump to spin slower. You also want to check the ground, make sure you don't have any resistance in the ground as well. Next, take the lock ring tool, place it over the lock ring, and make sure you adjust these two sides so it can lock the lock ring in place and there'll be little to no movement. As you can see here, this is the original fuel pump. It says Denso on it, and this fuel pump have never been replaced. When removing the fuel pump, make sure you do not break this line here. This line is extremely brittle. So just take your time on it. When removing the fuel pump, do not rush it. If this is on the way, just move it aside and go slowly. If you look at the fuel pump top end, you can see there's an arrow right here. So this is telling you that you should install the fuel pump back in the same spot that you removed it. Make sure to use a sharp rag and soak up as much gas as you can before installing the new fuel pump. When installing the fuel pump, make sure you go easy on the float because if you damage this fuel level sensor or fuel sending unit, it will show inaccurate fuel level readings. Make sure to remove the old fuel line clip and transfer it to the brand new fuel pump. When installing the brand new fuel pump, always go in with the float first and then you work your way around it. Make sure to prime the brand new fuel pump for a few seconds prior to starting it. This to make sure there are no leaks. Also, make sure you check fuel level. Make sure it's at the proper level. This is to ensure that you did not damage the fuel sending unit or fuel level sensor. And lastly, make sure you pull onto the connection, but do not wiggle it, just go back and forth. You do not want to break it. Make sure it is secure and tight. Also, make sure connection is also secure as well. So that was a very basic fuel pump replacement. This is on a Honda, so it's pretty simple. On another vehicle, it's much more difficult to work on. I hope you found this video useful. As always, thank you for watching and subscribe to Top 5 Auto Repairs.